The armored truck sat in the parking lot of a grocery store in suburban Phoenix, its crew following standard protocol for a routine cash pickup. 2 guards exited the vehicle while the driver remained behind the wheel. Engine running, doors locked from the inside. The guards entered the store manager's office and began counting currency for transport. They had completed this route dozens of times without incident. Security cameras captured what happened next in fragments that would later be analyzed frame by frame by federal investigators. A stolen panel van pulled into the lot and parked 3 spaces from the armored truck. 2 individuals emerged wearing full tactical gear, their faces concealed by balaclavas and dark goggles. They moved with precision that suggested extensive planning and reconnaissance. 1. Approached the driver's side door of the armored truck carrying a shaped charge specifically designed to breach reinforced barriers. The other positioned himself to cover the store entrance, an AR-15 rifle held at ready position. The entire sequence unfolded in less than 30 seconds. The shaped charge detonated with enough force to blow the armored door completely off its mounting. The driver, a 28-year veteran of the company, attempted to activate the emergency alarm, but was shot 4 times before he could reach the button. The attackers entered the vehicle, bypassing sophisticated security systems with tools that indicated advanced knowledge of armored car design. They located and disabled the GPS tracking unit, cutting power to communication systems before grabbing cash boxes from the storage compartment. The guards inside the store heard the explosion and rushed toward the exit. Security footage showed them drawing their weapons as they pushed through the doors. The second attacker opened fire immediately, cutting down both guards before they could return fire effectively. One died instantly from shots to the head and chest. The other survived long enough to trigger his emergency beacon, sending a silent alarm to the company's dispatch center. The attackers grabbed additional cash boxes from the fallen guards, loaded everything into their van, and were gone before the first police units arrived. Total elapsed time from initial approach to departure: 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The take exceeded $800,000 in cash, but the murders elevated the investigation to federal jurisdiction. The FBI took the lead with assistance from ATF and local law enforcement, but within 48 hours, it became clear this was not an isolated incident. Forensic analysis of shell casings, the explosive device, and tactical methodology matched 3 previous armored car robberies across the Southwest. The pattern was unmistakable. Same weapons, same explosives, same precision execution. A serial offender was operating across state lines, targeting armored trucks with increasing frequency and escalating violence. The first robbery occurred 6 months earlier in Albuquerque. 2 guards were wounded but survived. The second hit happened in El Paso 3 months later. 1 guard was killed when he attempted to resist. The third robbery took place in Tucson, resulting in 2 guards wounded and the driver suffering a heart attack from which he later died. Now, Phoenix, with 3 dead. The progression showed a pattern of increasing lethality, suggesting the offender was either growing more comfortable with violence or actively seeking to eliminate witnesses who might provide identifying information. U.S. Marshals joined the investigation when evidence indicated the offender was moving between jurisdictions, likely living on the road and striking targets opportunistically. A task force was established, pooling resources from federal agencies and state police departments across Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Investigators analyzed every aspect of the robberies, looking for signatures that might identify the suspect or predict future targets. The analysis revealed disturbing sophistication. Each robbery showed extensive prior surveillance. The offender knew guard schedules, cash pickup times, and security protocols. He understood the layout of parking lots, identifying positions that offered cover and concealment while providing quick egress routes. He selected targets near interstate highways, allowing rapid departure and access to multiple escape directions. The explosives were military-grade, suggesting either military training or connections to suppliers who dealt in restricted materials. The weapons were purchased legally in different states under false identifications, each one used once and then discarded. Financial analysis proved difficult because the stolen cash was untraceable currency from retail operations. No sequential serial numbers, no distinctive marking. The money could be spent anywhere without raising suspicion if introduced into circulation carefully. Investigators theorized the offender was funding an extended crime spree, living in motels, paying cash for everything, avoiding any transaction that might create a digital footprint. He was a ghost, moving through the Southwest, visible only during the brief, violent moments when he struck. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A surplus military equipment dealer in Oklahoma reported a suspicious customer who had purchased explosive materials and tactical gear matching items used in the robberies. The customer paid cash, provided minimal information, but was captured on the dealer's security cameras. Facial recognition software identified him as a former Army explosives specialist, dishonorably discharged 4 years earlier, following an investigation into equipment theft. His service record showed deployments to combat zones where he received advanced training in demolitions and close quarters combat. Investigators pulled his military files and constructed a profile. He was 42 years old, unmarried, no children. His discharge came after he was caught selling military equipment on the black market, charges that resulted in 6 months in military prison, followed by dishonorable discharge. Psychological evaluations conducted during his service noted antisocial tendencies and difficulty following orders. After discharge, he worked sporadically in private security and armored car services, jobs that gave him insider knowledge of the industry he was now targeting. Financial records showed he declared bankruptcy 2 years before the first robbery, losing a house and vehicle to creditors. The Marshals task force distributed his photograph to law enforcement agencies across the region, with instructions to consider him armed and extremely dangerous. Tips began flowing in from the public. Someone matching his description was seen at a gun show in Amarillo. Another sighting placed him at a truck stop outside Las Cruces. Each lead was investigated and eliminated. The sightings either mistaken identity or outdated information. The offender remained ahead of law enforcement, his movements unpredictable, and his security awareness exceptional. Then the pattern broke. Instead of waiting months between jobs, he struck again within 2 weeks, this time in Flagstaff, targeting an armored truck servicing a casino. The attack followed his established methodology: shaped charge, overwhelming firepower, precise execution. But this time, one of the guards was a military veteran who recognized the tactical approach and took cover instead of attempting direct confrontation. He survived by playing dead after receiving non-fatal wounds, providing investigators with the first detailed eyewitness account from someone who had faced the offender and lived. The guard described a white male, approximately 6 feet tall, athletic build, moving with military bearing. He spoke only once during the robbery, issuing commands to his accomplice in a voice the guard described as calm and controlled. The accomplice was smaller, possibly female, based on body shape, though clothing and gear made definitive identification impossible. This was crucial new information. Every previous analysis assumed a solo offender. The presence of a partner changed the investigation's entire focus. Investigators reviewed all surveillance footage again. With this new understanding, in each robbery, one person handled explosives while another provided cover. The roles were consistent, suggesting an established partnership rather than opportunistic recruitment. Financial analysis expanded to look for connections between the primary suspect and potential accomplices. Phone records, social media, known associates from his military service. The data mining produced a candidate, a former Army combat medic who had served in the same unit, discharged around the same time, following disciplinary issues. Her background mirrored his in disturbing ways. Dishonorably discharged for theft, history of financial problems, training that included weapons handling and tactical operations. Most significantly, she had disappeared from her last known address in Tempe 3 months before the first robbery. Around the same time, the primary suspect vanished from his apartment in Albuquerque. Investigators theorized they had reconnected after discharge, their shared grievances and training, creating a partnership ideally suited for violent crime. The Marshals task force now had 2 targets, their photographs distributed widely, with warnings about their military training and demonstrated willingness to kill. Surveillance was established at locations they might target based on the established pattern. Armored trucks servicing casinos, grocery stores, and shopping centers in medium-sized cities with good highway access. The offenders had struck in a rough geographic arc across the Southwest, and analysts predicted their next target would likely be in Southern California or Nevada, extending their operational range while maintaining the pattern of interstate mobility. The prediction proved accurate. 2 weeks after Flagstaff, they hit an armored truck in Henderson, Nevada, just outside Las Vegas. But this time, law enforcement was ready. Undercover officers were positioned at multiple high-probability targets, and when the stolen van pulled into the parking lot, tactical units were already moving into position. The offenders recognized the trap immediately, their military training allowing them to identify law enforcement presence that ordinary criminals might miss. What followed was a high-speed pursuit through suburban Las Vegas, the offenders abandoning their plan and fleeing in the stolen van. Spike strips deflated their tires on Boulder Highway, forcing them to abandon the vehicle and continue on foot through a residential neighborhood. Helicopters tracked their movement while ground units established a perimeter. The offenders separated, hoping to divide law enforcement resources and create escape opportunities. The male suspect broke into a house and took a family of 3 hostage, barricading himself in the master bedroom. Negotiators established contact while tactical teams positioned around the structure. The standoff lasted 6 hours, with the suspect demanding transportation and safe passage. Negotiators kept him talking while analyzing every word for intelligence about his state of mind and intentions. Psychological profiles suggested he was a narcissist who viewed himself as superior to law enforcement, a belief system that might lead him to take risks if he thought he could outthink his pursuers. The breakthrough came when the family's teenage son, hiding in a bathroom, managed to send a text message with details about the suspect's position and weaponry. This information allowed tactical planners to develop an entry strategy that minimized risk to the hostages. When the suspect became distracted during a phone call with negotiators, a sniper team took advantage of a brief window when he moved near an uncurtained window. A single shot ended the standoff. The hostages were extracted unharmed. The suspect was pronounced dead at the scene. Simultaneously, the female suspect had fled into a commercial district, breaking into a closed retail store and hiding in a storage room. K9 units tracked her scent through the building, and she was apprehended without further violence after a brief struggle. In her backpack, investigators found cash from the Henderson robbery attempt, along with detailed plans for future targets in California and Oregon. The documents revealed an ambition to continue the crime spree indefinitely, funding a lifestyle that rejected conventional employment and societal norms. Her interrogation provided crucial details about the partnership and the robberies. She claimed the male suspect dominated the relationship, using his military rank and experience to control planning and execution. She portrayed herself as a reluctant participant, manipulated and coerced. But evidence contradicted this narrative. Surveillance footage showed her firing weapons with expertise and moving with tactical proficiency that indicated full engagement rather than reluctant participation. Financial records revealed she had researched armored car companies and security procedures, contributing substantially to the operational planning. Federal prosecutors charged her with 15 counts, including murder, robbery, kidnapping, and weapons violations. The trial presented overwhelming evidence of her knowing and willing participation in the crime spree. Survivors and witnesses testified to the terror they experienced during the robberies. Forensic experts detailed the sophisticated planning and execution that went into each attack. The jury deliberated less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 8 consecutive life terms without possibility of parole. The investigation's conclusion brought relief to the armored car industry and the communities terrorized by the robberies. 7 guards had been killed during the spree, with 9 more wounded. Families received some measure of closure, knowing the offenders would never hurt anyone else. The surviving suspect's imprisonment and her partner's death ended a crime wave that had paralyzed an entire industry, forcing companies to redesign security protocols and guards to work with constant awareness that they might face military-trained killers. Analysis of the case revealed systemic issues that enabled the crime spree. The offenders exploited weaknesses in armored car security that had persisted for decades. Companies prioritized cost savings over guard safety, relying on deterrence through vehicle armor, rather than investing in enhanced training or backup systems. Routes were predictable, schedules were routine, and guards operated with minimal support when facing determined attackers. Industry reforms followed, including randomized schedules, enhanced communication systems, and tactical training for guards that acknowledged the evolving threat environment. The Marshals task force conducted extensive debriefing sessions, documenting lessons learned and best practices that emerged during the investigation. The case demonstrated the importance of interagency cooperation, with FBI, ATF, and Marshals each contributing specialized expertise. The successful resolution relied on intelligence analysis, surveillance technology, and tactical patience. Investigators resisted pressure to move prematurely, instead building comprehensive understanding of the offender's patterns and capabilities before attempting apprehension. 4. The guards who survived encounters with the offenders, the psychological toll proved substantial. Several required extended counseling to process trauma from facing military-trained killers while armed only with handguns and lacking tactical training. One guard, who witnessed his partner's murder during the Phoenix robbery, left the industry entirely, unable to continue work that now carried associations with extreme violence. Companies provided support services, but the experience fundamentally changed how guards approached their jobs, transforming what had been routine cash transport into high-risk security operations. The communities where robberies occurred implemented their own changes. Retail businesses that previously accepted large cash deliveries shifted to electronic banking and reduced currency on premises. Shopping center managers increased security during armored truck visits, positioning additional personnel to watch for suspicious activity. The visible presence of law enforcement near armored trucks became standard, a deterrent that acknowledged the new reality that these vehicles attracted violent criminals willing to kill for their contents in death. The male offender became a cautionary tale studied in law enforcement academies and military criminal justice courses. His trajectory from decorated soldier to dishonorably discharged veteran to serial killer illustrated how specific combinations of training, grievance, and antisocial personality could create extremely dangerous individuals. Preventing such trajectories required better screening during military recruitment, more effective intervention when service members showed warning signs, and enhanced tracking of individuals with specialized skills who left service under negative circumstances. The female offender's life sentence meant she would spend decades in federal prison, her expertise with weapons and tactics making her a permanent security concern. Prison officials classified her as high risk, implementing protocols designed to prevent her from organizing or leading other inmates. She filed appeals that were systematically denied, courts finding no error in her conviction and no grounds for reducing her sentence. She had participated in murders, and the justice system responded with maximum severity. The stolen money, over $2 million across all the robberies, was never fully recovered. Small amounts were found in storage units and vehicles used by the offenders, but the majority had already been spent or hidden in locations they never revealed. Investigators suspected they buried cash in remote desert locations, possibly planning to retrieve it later if they successfully evaded capture. Treasure hunters occasionally search areas where the offenders were known to operate, but nothing substantial has been found. For the Marshals who led the investigation, the case represented one of the most challenging pursuits of their careers. Tracking offenders with military training who understood surveillance and security required constant adaptation and creative thinking. Standard investigative techniques proved insufficient against suspects who anticipated law enforcement tactics. Success came through persistent intelligence gathering, leveraging technology, and waiting for the inevitable mistake that even the most sophisticated criminals eventually make. The families of the murdered guards participated in victim impact statements during the surviving offenders' sentencing. They described loved ones who had gone to work on ordinary days and never came home. Guards who had protected others for years, killed by criminals they never had chance to defend against. The statements painted pictures of ordinary people, fathers, husbands, brothers, whose lives ended violently because they happened to be working when determined killers selected their employer as a target. The judge acknowledged their pain during sentencing, noting that no punishment could restore what was lost, but that justice demanded accountability for lives taken and terror inflicted. The sentences imposed reflected both retribution for past acts and protection of future potential victims. By ensuring the surviving offender would never be released, the court guaranteed she could not harm anyone else. A permanent removal that provided some measure of security to a society she had demonstrated willingness to victimize. In the years following the case, armored car robberies decreased significantly in the Southwest. The dramatic conclusion to this particular crime spree sent a message that resonated through criminal networks. Law enforcement would pursue such cases with maximum resources and accept no outcome except apprehension or elimination. The certainty of consequences, combined with improved security measures by armored car companies, made these robberies too risky for the potential reward. The investigation's success validated the Marshals Service's approach to serial offender cases. Treat them as ongoing threats rather than isolated incidents. Coordinate across jurisdictions from the beginning. Leverage technology while maintaining traditional investigative skills. And maintain pressure until the offender makes a fatal mistake. These principles, applied consistently and intelligently, created an environment where even sophisticated criminals with specialized training could not operate indefinitely without facing accountability. For the task force members, life moved forward to new cases and different challenges, but the lessons from this investigation informed their approach to every subsequent pursuit. They had faced offenders who represented the extreme end of criminal capability: military trained, tactically proficient, willing to kill without hesitation, and successfully brought that threat to an end. The experience provided confidence that no fugitive, regardless of skills or resources, could evade determined law enforcement indefinitely. The surviving offender sits in federal prison, her days structured around routine and restriction. She is now 47 years old, with decades of imprisonment ahead, her appeals exhausted, her options limited to the bare minimum provided by the prison system. The skills that once made her dangerous now have no application beyond the memories that occasionally surface in nightmares. The guards whose murders she facilitated are gone, but their families continue, carrying grief forward while finding ways to honor the memories of those they lost. The case file remains a reference point for investigators facing similar patterns. When armored car robberies show signs of sophistication and interstate coordination, this case provides both methodology for investigation and warning about the potential dangers involved. The offenders' military backgrounds became a template for understanding how specialized training can be weaponized by individuals who reject societal norms and embrace violence as a problem-solving tool. Justice was served through combination of intelligence, technology, coordination, and tactical skill. The offenders were stopped before they could expand their spree further, before more guards died, before more families suffered irreplaceable loss. The outcome was not perfect. 7 guards still died. Stolen money was never fully recovered. Psychological scars remain among survivors, but the alternative, allowing the offenders to continue unchecked, would have resulted in catastrophically worse outcomes. The Marshals Service updated its training materials to include this case, teaching new deputies about serial offenders who cross state lines and the importance of recognizing patterns early. Early identification allows for coordinated response before body counts escalate. The Phoenix robbery that killed 3 guards might have been prevented if the pattern had been recognized after the first incident rather than the third. That knowledge now shapes how investigators approach potentially serial crimes, with lower thresholds for multi-jurisdictional coordination and enhanced information sharing. In the end, 2 individuals with military training and deep grievances against society used their skills to terrorize communities and murder innocent people. Law enforcement, drawing on its own expertise and institutional resources, tracked them across multiple states and brought the crime spree to conclusion. 1 offender died during apprehension. The other will spend the rest of her life imprisoned. The guards they killed are remembered by families and colleagues who ensure their sacrifice is not forgotten. And the system adapted, becoming slightly more resilient, slightly better prepared for the next threat that emerges from the intersection of training, grievance, and criminal intent.